So Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares has come out and said that depending on the results of elections in the US and Europe next year in 2024, they may have to adjust their EV rollout schedule. And to absolutely no one's surprise, EV proponents have come out of the woodwork to criticize them. Welcome back to All Cars, y'all. I am John, and yes, this is going to be an editorial video about this because something really got in my craw about the whole thing. So the story is that Carlos Tavares has come out and said that with the US presidential election in 2024 in November and the European Parliament elections coming up, and that public opinion may be changing some of the regulations out there, they may need to change their EV rollout schedule. And as you can expect, EV proponents have, again, come out of the woodwork to criticize this. Some of my favorites were somebody who said that, well, it looks like big oil finally got to him. Another one said, what do they think they're going to be able to sell in 2030 without any EVs, like the EV revolution is going to happen in the next 6 years? And worst of all is our favorite Viking here on YouTube, where he made an interesting comparison to the first generation iPhone and said this. Take a listen.
I don't think anyone really dictated the smartphone. Remember the smartphone, right? We have the Nokia, it's got buttons all over it. And then all of a sudden we move to the iPhone. You have people lining up outside stores to buy an iPhone.
So let's take that at face value, that the first iPhone was bad. To say that they didn't give in to public opinion and they pushed the technology forward to a future that you and me, the average unwashed masses, couldn't even see. I think that's terribly unfair and disingenuous to the whole situation. And I think what Tavares says is very fair and pragmatic from the leader of one of the largest auto manufacturing companies in the world who has to navigate the regulatory environment. So let's pick apart, first off, the Vikings' comments. I think it's unfair to say that if a product comes out, it's unfair that a company doesn't listen to public opinion. Instead, they continue to drive forward to a future and show the public what's out there. That's true and not true. There's an example, I think it's in that Iacocca book right behind me here, where they were talking about workshopping the Plymouth Sundance and the Dodge Shadow. And when customers looked at it, they always had comments like, oh, I wish it was a little bit wider, I wish it had a little more power, I wish I had a bigger back seat. Companies have to take feedback and translate it into what's possible with the technology and at a price that consumers want to pay. Their answer was, we have that car. It's the Plymouth Acclaim. It's the bigger car. Well, that works with the iPhone as well. Maybe Apple didn't sway to public opinion and the news articles that are out there, or if YouTube existed at the time in the form it does now of talking heads saying, well, you need to do this. They still have to listen to the customer and listen to the customer's frustration. So perhaps a auto manufacturer in this case has a vision of where the technology can go. They've got to have customer input along the way to get there. So I think the whole comment is kind of unfair. And the second thing is I think it misrepresents what Carlos actually said. He's not saying they're abandoning their EV. In fact, Stellantis commented to Automotive News that they are not abandoning their 2030 plan, which is for 100% EVs in the European Union and 50% here in the United States. But they're recognizing the fact that politics may affect the adoption or the adoption rate. Here in America, we have the Inflation Reduction Act, which gives $7,500 tax credits, tax rebates, to buyers of qualifying electric vehicles. It also has built-in EV credits for buying used EVs, as well as tax benefits for manufacturers building batteries here and mining the materials. There's a lot built into all this, and it's written now, it's law. But if a new administration comes in, it's much more conservative, and they want to start pulling that back a little bit, it's going to affect EV adoption rates. And the same thing in the European Parliament. So a company has to be flexible in their approach moving forward And ultimately, that's all that Stellantis is saying, is they have to be flexible. And this is a message to me, to the investors, that they're not ignoring the world, they're not ignoring the regulatory environment, they are facing it and coming up with contingency plans on what to do in the future. That's fair, but of course the EV proponents have to make an issue out of it, have to make a mountain out of a molehill. Now, I've done videos where I talk about most EV people who own them are happy to talk about what they thought it was like and what it's actually like, and they become the biggest proponents of EVs when you talk to them on a one-on-one basis. But once you get online, once you get behind the curtain a little bit and you get the really radicalized EV proponents, it becomes almost cultish. And anything you say is anti-EV, even if it's a legitimate concern. And what really, really got to me about this whole situation, about what I read online, and about the Vikings' comments, was they know what's best for you, and they don't want to hear your opinion. That there's an EV future, they're dragging you towards it, you can't even see how good it's going to be, and you just need to come along for the ride and never say anything about it. When they say that Stellantis is talking about giving in to public opinion, well, public opinion are voters. Public opinion are consumers. And public opinion is what's going to put in place the politicians who set the policy around EV adoption. But they don't want any of that. They know what's best, and they're going to tell you, and they're going to tell the companies what to do, where to go, and how it's going to be. This really, this whole situation really rubs me wrong, as a matter of fact. And I'm not anti-EV at all. I keep thinking about it. I'm not in the mood to buy a car. I keep looking at it. I keep thinking about it. I have my concerns, specifically around price and range. But I'm not anti-EV. I'm not anti-clean energy. I'm not anti-environmentalism. I'm not anti any of that. But I want a legitimate, reasoned, informed discussion about it. And unfortunately, people out there don't want to have that. They don't want to address concerns. They want to just say, if you don't see it my way, you are therefore anti-EV. And I want to close this with saying I am not trying to pick a fight with Sam here. He has a bigger, more successful channel than me, and he researches EVs around the world and the markets and where the companies are going. And I do respect that. And it's not just his video that got to me, it's the comments online of people who are pro-EV for most of the time the best of reasons. They don't see that their attitude is what's turning off other people who are considering EVs. There's been a slowdown in EV adoption here in America. While the number of EVs being sold is actually going up, the percentage is relatively stagnant. Not exactly, but relatively. And I personally believe it's not the anti-EV message from, say, Fox News. It's not the anti-EV messaging coming out from the news. And it's not all the YouTube videos. It's consumers having questions and them being dismissed along the way. Let me know what you think below, guys. Thanks for being here.